Welcome back to another video here on the xisumasays channel. The format today is that I'm just sitting down and talking to all of you about my experience with Google Stadia. I played it for about 30 minutes last night. It was interesting, I want to talk about it, and unfortunately I've got no footage to show you, so you're probably just seeing an image. This is one of those ones to sit back and listen. Now in the past I could have perhaps invested in some hardware to capture HDMI inputs. Every now and then I think, oh, I could do something playing a game on a console, but I never bothered because I generally just end up doing Minecraft videos all the time, right? So I've had no need to buy hardware like that, and this would have been a really great opportunity, and it's making me think maybe I should invest in some more ways to capture some of the things they get up to because I like talking about them. So you'll see no footage from the actual Stadia experience that I had in this video, and full disclosure, I got my Google Stadia Founders Edition for free. I don't know what the specific reasons I got it for free were. I just got an email. I assume it's because I am a YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers. Maybe that's the threshold. Maybe the number's different. In fact, now I think about it, I know other people that got it as well who had less than that. So for whatever reason, we got our hands on this for free. They didn't ask me to make a video. They didn't even say anything at all. I just got an invitation to get it for free. So just letting you know that I got this for free. If I had paid money for it, I reckon I would be a little bit more aggravated. I'm not aggravated, it was free, so my experience with it has been kind of trivial. If I'd have paid money, yeah, I think I would be pretty upset with the Stadia experience out of the box. So first of all, setting it up was interesting. It feels kind of easy, linking all these devices together, putting apps on your phone, hooking up the Chromecast and then hooking it to your controller. But as you want to get going and you want to get gaming, you just keep having to do more and more stuff. It's a little bit convoluted. Their instructions missed a few things I noticed. You have to link your app on your phone to your controller. You have to link your controller to your Chromecast and your Chromecast to your app. And you go through several little loops and there's like bits where it doesn't quite tell you what to do. But I eventually figured it out, and in total it probably took about an hour to hook everything up, which isn't too bad. If you think about a console though, it's probably no more than 10 minutes pulling it out the box, plugging it in, putting the disc in and playing a game. So there's that to comment on, but it's not really a big deal. The whole interface and the ease of doing it though was pretty straightforward. It all really clean and it all seems to work. When you get inside of Stadia, you see the prices of the games and they are phenomenal. 40, 50, some games were £80 to stream. And that just blew my mind. It's been a long time since I've, regularly bought any games. The top games when I was younger were like 30 to 40 pounds, and I was aware that they kind of started to go 45, 50, and inflation is a thing as well. But seeing games that you would have a better experience with on a console for 80 quid in the store was just bonkers. And I actually thought that by having the 3 months free of the top tier subscription would mean you would get access to all of the games. I don't know why I thought that. They had an advertising campaign. I don't remember things very well, like specifically. So just letting you know that, I've been given an impression of what the Stadia experience would be like based on their advertising campaign. And for some reason, I thought you get all the games free. Turns out you get 2 of them. You get Destiny 2, which actually looks like a really cool game. I'm not one for buying into shooters anymore. However, a shooter game where you're not shooting at humans, at least I didn't see any when I was playing. I was like some weird robot shooting at other robots. That stuff's actually pretty immersive and cool, and it sort of gave me a bit of a flashback to the days of playing Halo and other games around that era, that time. And the other game that you got was some sort of like Dynasty Warriors, Asian Kung Fu slash swords, sabers, whatever they call them, kind of game. I can't remember what it was. So I was really quite disappointed with that, but again, I got this for free, so, it was what it was. So I decided to play Destiny 2. The game I was actually going to play was Trials Fusion, and I couldn't find it in the store to figure out how much it cost as well, which was really weird. When I went into the store, there's supposed to be about 20 games, and yet I kept finding my way to about 8 games over and over again, so didn't figure out where Trials Fusion was at, so don't know how much it cost. But that was the one I was going to play. Ended up playing Destiny 2. And the experience, once I started streaming the game, started coming towards me, was not so good. But also kind of impressive as well, right? Because this is new technology. The idea of streaming games, I think, could be absolutely incredible once all the humps and bumps are figured out and gotten over. So the image quality is kind of like 1080 H definition. I don't think I had it set up for 4K streaming. I also didn't have a 4K telly, so I didn't faff around with all of that. It's good when the image is still, but then when movement happens on the screen, it gets quite blurry. And bear in mind, this is using my internet connection and Wi-Fi. These are variables that a console doesn't have to deal with. The console performs the same way every time. So if I plug this in with an Ethernet cable, or I take it to a different house for a different internet connection, I might have a really different experience. In fact, I'm looking forward to just taking it with me when I go see some friends and just being like, look, I got Google Stadia, let's check out what it's like. That'll be fun. Let's get back on track. So I go through the Destiny 2 menus and I start playing the game, and I'm kind of impressed with the latency. Okay, it feels really short, the latency, when you move around. But the problem is the latency seems to be linked to the image that you're looking at. So as you start to move around, if you move sharply, the image quality just gets destroyed for a moment, and then it sort of restores itself, which is not what I was expecting at all. So if there's a lot going on the screen and you stand still, it all kind of comes into focus. But then when you start to move left to right or turn around corners, it gets blurry until you stop again. And also your movement and the latency is affected when this kind of fluctuation in image quality happens. So enemies are like jumping out at me, like you do a bit of walking in the beginning of Destiny and then some enemies come at you and they sort of like jump out from behind corners and then you start engaging them and shooting at them. And in these moments where you need your latency to be really good, there's so much happening on the screen, animations, lighting effects, because shots are being fired, things are moving, that the latency falls apart, and all of a sudden, the shooting and the action and the engaging with the enemy becomes far more difficult. Unfortunately, the beginning of the game is really quite easy, and I didn't play it for very long to see too far into how much this would affect you, but I experimented with it a fair bit, and it's pretty awful for a shooter game to lose that latency and fidelity right as you're doing the shooting. It was really difficult to get headshots off and to aim properly, and I ended up kind of like haphazardly aiming based on knowing that there was going to be that latency. So I'd sort of aim before and then I would strafe move into the shot, if that makes sense. So you kind of line up your shots like and then move across and shoot, as opposed to what I was doing before, which was trying to actually aim at the enemy with the visual movement of the character, right? Moving what you're pointing on. I ended up shooting by using my player's movement left to right. That kind of helped a little bit, but it was not good. Now, I got this for free, so it was just a fun little experiment. If I'd have paid money for that, you'd be really disappointed. It cannot compete with console gaming at all in its current state. If I had a way better connection and the video was streaming just fine, I would say if that can be delivered, then it's not bad playing a game knowing the latency is off slightly. Then you'll start to think, this is a good trade-off for the technology that I've got here, the portability of Stadia, the fact that it's just being streamed. I haven't brought like a console or anything. But anyway, it was a brief and limited experience that I had, but it really got me thinking about what are Google thinking with this product? What was behind the advertising campaign? What are their long-term goals? Because this hardware clearly isn't there yet in terms of all the things it could deliver. And it also feels like the games that they've tried to get onto the platform have not been done in a way that is going to really exploit some of the capabilities of this technology. I only played one game, but looking through the catalogue, it didn't look like... I think there's no exclusive games. I think there's like one, but it seemed to me like it would have been a good idea to get exclusives on there that take advantage of things only Stadia could do as a streaming platform. I don't know what those are, but it really feels like the way they've launched this is they've tried to show you the end product before it's even there, and it's not going to be there for years. I also want to point out something as well. I stopped playing the game because it kind of locked up. So I got to a loading screen. Another disappointing thing about this is there is a lot of loading screens, which makes it feel like the game is just ported from the console over to the Stadia experience. The way they sort of promoted being able to jump in and out of games and game states sort of being saved, to me suggested that loading screens would be gone, that the cloud computing would mean that they could just kind of bypass that because it's all stored in memory. But that wasn't the case. Maybe that's something they could do with future games. Again, a good reason to have launched with these things out of the box with exclusive games. Maybe they could have designed them in a way where it's like, hey, when you play this game on Google Stadia, there's no loading screens, but no. Anyway, the loading screen actually locked up, and I gave it like a minute, and then I was like, yeah, this is all gone wrong. And then I started pressing random buttons on the controller and actually loaded up the menu inside the game. So I could go through all this like character customization, look at my stats and unlocks, and yet the loading screen was still locked. So clearly there are some big bugs to fix with the porting, getting stuck on loading screens. And just going back to that point about the technology, they've advertised this end product of like, instant playability, streaming in 4K, low latency, and it's just not there yet. And I'm thinking, this is quite some expensive hardware to pay for, and the games are expensive. Like, who are Google targeting here, and what is their long-term plan? Because they're charging a lot for a product that is not really there yet, and I'm hoping that they have a long-term plan. Because the game catalog kind of suggests they've thrown this all together rather quickly. This looks like a product that needs to have come out slowly and developed and just gotten slowly better over time, and then get to a point where they could really start pushing it, maybe by getting exclusive games onto the platform as a way to say, like, come here and check out Stadia and how it works. Because if this is a launch where they expect it to be like a PlayStation or an Xbox launch, it's an absolute failure. Like, the technology just doesn't seem to be there. And I've spent a little bit of time listening, reading, finding just general opinions from around the web, and it does seem like your experience is really based on the luck of the draw of getting a good connection. I've seen some people talking about having really great, 1 gigabit connections right next to the data center, and yet they've got a terrible experience on Stadia. So there's a luck of the draw element, which no one wants. You don't want to buy a PlayStation and roll the dice to see if it's going to perform well or not. So it just seems to me like now this thing is being kind of rolled out not in the best way possible, really. But I think the technology has huge potential, and they should really focus on developing that technology. Now, if their goal is for this to be like a business strategy, like they need to see profits and returns, this thing could really fail quite easily. I don't think a lot of people are going to be adopting this after hearing about other people's experiences, because like, it's very obvious, like I said, luck of the draw. You could have a really bad experience putting your money into this. So I don't know quite where this is going to go, but I'm hoping that it is not a business plan of we need to see money, we need to see returns, because they could cancel this in a few years. Google got a history of starting up lots of projects and products and then eventually just cancelling them when they don't work. And that's not a bad thing overall, but when you're taking someone's money, which wasn't my case, but a lot of people's money for this experience, if they shut it off in a couple of years, that's really, really terrible. And I think they should stick this one out, develop the product, and turn it around, because it's got huge potential. Huge potential, especially economically as well, in terms of, imagine one day we are all streaming our gaming experiences and that becomes the norm. Not distributing millions of consoles to different households and having it done cloud computing wise can be economically way better, and that means environmentally way better, far more efficient use of technology. Think about how many PlayStations right now have, I don't know how many they've sold, but imagine it's 100 million, right? How many of those are turned on and being used right now? Maybe like 10% or something. So there's a lot of hardware just sitting around doing nothing. And with cloud computing, you could turn that around and make things more efficient. And it could, lay the foundation for more types of cloud computing in the future. I know there's like operating system computing where you can sort of have all the features of an OS done over the clouds. Just log into your little Chromebook and stream the console to you over the internet. I know that's been done. And it can be done for other things. And they're trying to do it with gaming, and that's good, but this launch just really feels kind of off to me. The way that they've promoted and advertised it seems to me like they've scrambled this idea together kind of quickly based on the game catalog, promoted the end product that they're years and years away from reaching, and charged a lot of money for it as well. And those kind of elements sound not so good. And the one good thing about it is obviously the technology, but it's not there yet. So those are my thoughts anyway. Just wanted to ramble off about Google Stadia.